Good news, pop-ups are here in Elementor Pro. Over the last couple of years, Elementor have introduced loads of amazing features for marketers, gradually replacing the need for all kinds of other separate tools or services. We're talking landing page builders, opt-in forms, evergreen timers, URL parameters for personalization, and loads more. So, can the new native pop-ups feature in Elementor Pro also replace all the other lead capture and pop-up tools out there? Do you now even need any separate tools at all? Is it really the game changer it might appear to be? Well, that's what today's video is all about. I'm Dave Foy from Design Build Web. I teach non-coders how to build better, high-performing websites using WordPress and Elementor. We've got a lot to cover. Let's get going. So here's how this is going to work. I'll first remind you of all the use cases for pop-ups and some of the main plugins and services out there that we currently use. And then we're going to need to find out if Elementor can replace some of them or even all of them. So I'll review the types of pop-ups other tools give us, as well as all the triggers, conditions, targeting and personalization that other tools allow as well. And we'll see if Elementor can match them. I'll then review each of those real-life use cases and see how Elementor pop-ups can handle those. I'll highlight any particular advantages Elementor has over other tools out there, as well as any downsides. Anything to watch out for that might mean you can't ditch the external tools just yet. And just to set some expectations before we crack on, I will be showing you an overview of how the pop-ups in Elementor work, but this is not going to be an in-depth tutorial or how to make fancy workflows step by step. I'm going to make separate videos focused on all of those. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel to be notified. Okay, it's time to dive in. So first, what are pop-ups typically used for? What use cases will Elementor pop-ups need to handle if we can even consider replacing other tools with it? It's quite a list. Lead capture, your standard opt-in forms. Recommended content or products related to the post or the product category you're viewing. Coupons and discounts. So a pop-up offers a discount code as you arrive, or maybe as you're just about to leave. Cart abandonment. Visitor is about to leave the cart. A pop-up quickly offers them an incentive to stay. Logins. So a pop-up with a login form, but it only shows if you're not already logged in. Age consent gate, like a full screen pop-up when you arrive at a site asking if you're over 18 or 21. Segmenting content, like where you allow the visitors to choose which content best suits them. Segmenting leads with multi-choice selections. So this is where you show multiple choice options in a pop-up and then segment leads, tag them or deliver different content based on the options they choose. Surveys and quizzes, great for lead capture. Pre-qualifying leads, basically a quiz again with conditional content that helps you find out if the visitor is suitable for your service. Social proof pop-ups, those little bubbles on e-commerce stores that show you who else has recently bought something or little testimonials from other customers. Urgency offers, so a special offer that's expiring soon with a countdown timer, maybe an evergreen countdown that is specific to each individual visitor. So yeah, a ton of use cases for pop-ups, and I've likely forgotten just as many again. Could Elementor pop-ups replace some or even all of those use cases you might need? We'll see. By the way, I've made a PDF cheat sheet of everything I cover in this video, all the use cases, pop-up types, pop-up triggers, and targeting for easy reference. I'll send it to you. Go to designbuildweb.co/Elementor Popups. Let me know your email address and I'll send it over. So that's a fair old list of use cases for pop-ups. What tools or services do people use right now to achieve this kind of functionality? Here are just a few of the main ones. Well, there are free WordPress plugins like Popup Maker. You do need some paid extensions for some functionality. There are paid plugins like Convert Pro from Brainstorm Force, who you might know as the developers of the Astra theme and ultimate add-ons for Elementor. Ninja Popups, Thrive Leads, Survey Slam, which takes lead capture further with quizzes and surveys and some more advanced segmentation, and Hollowbox, which handles the usual pop-ups, but also sale notifications integrated with WooCommerce, which is a social proof use case I just mentioned. And then, of course, there are loads of separate third-party apps too, like Optin Monster, Sumo, ConvertBox, which is awesome, actually. All kinds of segmentation, personalization, targeted messages, multi-step flows. There's ConvertFlow, which is pretty similar to ConvertBox. And then there's FOMO and Proof, and both of which provide that social proof of others buying a product. Now, clearly, this list is just the tip of the iceberg. There are hundreds of other similar tools. So I'm not going to be comparing every precise feature of every tool one by one. This video is going to be long enough as it is. I just want to see if Elementor's pop-ups will allow us to generally achieve the same use cases and scenarios, even if there are still some caveats or compromises to be aware of. So let's first see what types of pop-ups these services allow us to make. I'll obviously need Elementor to be able to make them too. Lightbox pop-up, the most typical kind of pop-up where you see the page underneath the overlay. Interstitials, which is a fancy way of saying a full screen pop-up that covers the page you actually came to see. This one here is a welcome mat that you'd see when you first visit a site. Floating bars, or the hello bar as it's sometimes known, either at the top, like this, or maybe at the bottom. Scroll box, where a side box appears like this. Sidebar slide-ins, bubbles, so little bubbles or rectangles that appear at the bottom with maybe tips or testimonials or social proof, and multi-step pop-ups as well, where you open one pop-up and then clicking a link or a button opens the next step. So it is multiple steps, and each step might depend on what the visitor clicked in the previous step. And Elementor can definitely make all these types of pop-ups because I used Elementor to make all those examples. Here's a brief look at how to do it. Under Elementor's menu, there's a new templates folder, into pop-ups, and add new. I'll give it a name. As with creating any other templates in Elementor, you can choose from provided templates. So there's a new pop-ups tab here with some pre-designed templates, or you can start from scratch by clicking the X to close the library window. So I'll just choose this one here, insert. I'm not going to read out every single setting or go in depth in this particular video. And anyway, it's actually ridiculously easy to use. But the gist is, the pop-up itself is just made up of Elementor sections and widgets, just like editing any other template. You can add new sections, drag in inner sections, and any Elementor widgets you like. In fact, to show you this and to make this demo a bit easier to see, because I've got my screen zoomed right in for the video, I'm just going to delete this first section inside the pop-up here. And then in the section settings that's left over, I'll just add in a bit of top padding. To get back to the pop-up settings at any time, you click the gear icon, bottom left. You have various layout settings here, like the width of the pop-up, its position on the screen, whether to have an overlay or not, whether a close button or not, which is great for those forced interactions like age gates. Now the colour of the close button right now is a bit dark to see, I'll fix that in a sec. Some really nice animation settings. So let's say we're going to fade in left. Most settings are responsive, so you can have different options, like a different position on mobile than on desktop. And then style settings here. So these are styles for the pop-up itself. If you use Elementor, you'll be familiar with all these controls already. And then there are styles for the overlay and for the close button. So I'll set the X close button to be white and a little bit bigger so you can actually see it. And basically, you have all the comprehensive design control you always have with Elementor. Even better, you're not just stuck with predefined pop-up types. I mean, yes, I added a slide-in pop-up template as a starting point, but the design process is completely flexible. So you can basically create whatever you like, freestyle. So this doesn't have to be a slide-in. So some quick examples. To change this to a typical lightbox, I'll set horizontal and vertical center. In animation, let's not fade in left, let's maybe slide in down instead. I can adjust the width in pixels and that changes the width of the entire pop-up. Or a scroll box. Okay, so horizontal right, vertical bottom, and the animation can be sliding up this time. A full screen, so we'll set horizontal and vertical center again. I'm going to set height, fit to screen. Set content position to center, so the content is in the center of however tall the pop-up is. And then don't set the width in pixels, set it in VW, which is viewport width, the width of the window. So we go right up to 100, that's 100% of the viewport width. I want the pop-up itself full width, but not the content inside it. This is too wide. So like with any Elementor section, you edit the content width on the inner section, and I'll set that to 400. The animation on this now can be sliding down, so gear icon to edit the pop-up settings again and choose sliding down from the animation. Well, that's all great. Is there anything missing? Well, I first thought that it'd be great to have even more fine-grained control over positioning of the pop-up, like maybe X, Y coordinates, as well as just hard left or right or bottom. But actually, I'll show you editing that bubble social proof pop-up I made. Now, I set it left and bottom, but I didn't want it totally flush to the edges of the screen. So in advanced, in the pop-up, shifted the margin left 20 pixels and added a negative top margin to pull it up 20 pixels. It's actually pretty flexible. The only real gripe I've noticed is that the close button needs a few more styling options. It'd be nice to have a circular button, maybe a choice of icons. Before we move on, I mentioned multi-step as a pop-up type. Yep, that can be done, as you saw in my examples. I'll show you how to actually make those multi-step pop-ups in the next bit of this video because it relies on triggers, but it's really easy. But yes, Elementor handles all those types of pop-ups and with far more flexible and powerful design control than literally any other solution out there. Okay, so that's pop-up types. What pop-up triggers would Elementor need to be able to handle? Other services have open triggers to open pop-ups like on-click. Pop-up appears on clicking a button or a link or a menu item. It might be on the page, it might be even within another pop-up. Page entrance, so immediately when someone enters a page, like with a welcome mat. Exit intent, when it looks like someone might be leaving. Page scroll percentage, when the visitor scrolls a certain percentage down the page. Page scroll to element, so when the visitor scrolls to a certain fixed part of the page, like the end of a blog post or down to a certain product in a list. Time on page, showing the pop-up after a set amount of time, like 30 seconds. And time inactive, the pop-up appears after, say, 1 minute of no activity from the visitor, just to give them a little nudge. And what about triggers to close the pop-up as well? Well, we're going to need a close button, a link or button inside the pop-up to close it, like a no thanks link, timed closure, where it disappears after a certain amount of time has passed, or the close button only appears after a certain time, and no close button at all, for when you need to force interaction with the pop-up, like with age gates, for example. Can Elementor handle these pop-up triggers? The answer to all these is yes. So back to the pop-up we were creating. You set most triggers and conditions and targeting exactly how you set display conditions with all other Elementor templates. You see them either right after you click the publish button, the options are there, or by clicking the disclosure arrow and seeing the options here. It doesn't matter, both methods display the same three menus: display conditions, triggers, and advanced rules. And we're looking at triggers right now, so I'll come back to conditions and advanced targeting rules in a moment. So in triggers, you have all the open triggers I mentioned: page entrance, exit intent, on scrolling down a certain percentage of the page or to a certain element on the page. And there are extra settings for most of these as well. So on page load, for example, if you wanted an instant welcome mat, leave it at 0 seconds. Or if you wanted it to show only after 30 seconds, then set it at 30. There's actually one open trigger that's not covered here. What about actually clicking a button or a link to open a pop-up? You see in triggers here, on click is just after a certain number of clicks anywhere on the page. It's not a specific button or link. It's actually very easy. Let's come over to a demo landing page. So here's the button. I want the pop-up to appear after it's clicked. So in the button widget, in the link field, click dynamic and then choose pop-up from the list. You choose to have this button open a pop-up and then choose the pop-up you want. Super easy. And you can open pop-ups from the link field on any Elementor widget that has one, even headings or images. It's not just buttons. And this is exactly how you create multi-step pop-ups like the example I showed you earlier. So first, well, I created two pop-ups, imaginatively titled, I know. So the trigger on the button on the page is to open pop-up number one. Now we need to add a trigger to this button in the pop-up to take you to pop-up number two. So let's edit this pop-up number one to add the trigger to the button inside it. Now the button here in this pop-up isn't a button widget, it's an Elementor form widget, but we can add pop-up triggers to forms too. You find that over in the form widget settings in action after submit. I'm already sending the email address over to Drip, my email marketing service, and you've got a load of different email services all integrated with Elementor here. But you can also choose pop-up, so you can have multiple actions after submitting the form. Then we just choose the pop-up we want to appear after the form is submitted, our second pop-up. This time it's our pop-up number two. So I'll update this pop-up, and now back to the landing page, and let's see that again in action. Cool. That's my handsome mate Lee Jackson making a special appearance there. So of course this final pop-up could be a link to a sales page or an opt-in form or anything you like. Well, that's open triggers then. What about the close triggers I mentioned? Of course you can set whether you have a close button at all, so that's great for those forced interactions like age gates where the visitor has to make a choice and can't close the pop-up till they've made a choice. For timed closure, well, that's up here in the advanced tab actually, to either show the close button after a certain time or even close the entire pop-up after a certain time. How would you close a pop-up with a link or a button inside the pop-up as part of the content? So here in my full screen welcome mat pop-up, I've actually got a standard close button anyway, but I want this link as well. No thanks, I don't need the guide. And giving the option for your visitor to actively reject your offer is a really good conversion tactic. Anyway, adding a close trigger to a link is almost identical to adding an open trigger. So again, you edit the link field in the widget, choose dynamic link, choose pop-up, but this time it's to close the pop-up. Really simple, very effective. So it seems like Elementor can handle all the open and close triggers you like, except the only trigger I couldn't find that I'd like to see is triggering based on classes or IDs on elements. So in the settings for the pop-up, allow you to set the class or ID of an element that will trigger the pop-up when clicked. But that's it. Now Elementor would also need to allow for some pretty advanced targeting conditions and rules to show the right pop-ups at the right time. So to replace other tools, we're going to need rules that say where to show the pop-up on the site, like which pages or sections or categories, who to show the pop-ups to, like visits only from certain referrers, people coming from Facebook only, or only visitors who aren't logged in. When to show the pop-ups, like only between certain dates or times, or if you're running a time-limited campaign. Display on certain devices only, like the ability to not display a pop-up on mobile for a better user experience or for SEO reasons. Limit how many times to show a pop-up per visit, or number of sessions for that user, or only after a certain number of page views per visit. And some tools have even more advanced conditions and rules that are actually incredibly useful, like the ability to set a specific cookie in the visitor's browser. You can then choose to conditionally show a pop-up based on if that cookie is set. So for example, someone opts in for a lead magnet, you set a cookie for that visitor, and then we don't show them that opt-in pop-up again, or we even show them another offer instead. And the ability to show or hide a pop-up based on certain parameters in the page URL. Like if we send an email subscriber to our site, we could pass along a subscriber tag in the URL, and we can then check against that to make sure we don't show them certain pop-ups. And further still, what about personalization? Some of those tools we looked at, like ConvertBox and ConvertFlow, have some pretty nice personalization features to increase engagement or provide a better user experience. Wow, all this is a tall order for a brand new feature, right? Maybe. Well, let's take a look and see. Back to edit the pop-up, and in display conditions, here's where you set exactly where pop-up should appear, just like display conditions with all Elementor templates. And if you've used those before, you'll know the conditions can get pretty fine-grained. And in advanced rules, well, here's where you set those advanced conditions and rules, like hiding your login pop-up from logged in users, or only showing the pop-up to visitors from Facebook, or only showing the pop-up once the visitor has seen at least 5 pages on your site or they've been back to your site 3 times. Here's where you'd hide the pop-up from mobile users. Why would you want to do that? Here's one example. Check out my welcome mat example again. Now, Google doesn't like it when you block the main page content like this for mobile visitors anyway, so you can turn this pop-up off on mobile, which is easy. And you could also, for mobile visitors only, embed that same pop-up directly on the page itself to keep Google happy. I know that's a feature that Sumo provides, for example. Now, I actually expected to be able to embed pop-ups within page content, which would be really handy. If you think you could have all these display conditions and targeting rules applied to content embedded in sidebars or in the main content area. I mean, each pop-up template has a shortcode, like all the other Elementor templates. It doesn't seem to work, at least not yet. Nothing displays when you try it. So just for now, to embed that welcome mat into the page itself for mobile users only, you'd have to recreate the pop-up content in Elementor in a new inner section on the page itself, and then use the responsive controls on that section to hide it on desktop and tablet. So mobile users would not see the pop-up, but they would still see the pop-up content on the page, which solves that SEO problem. There are just 3 conditions or rules that I can't replicate with Elementor's pop-ups right now. That's when to show the pop-ups, like only between certain dates or times. If you're running a time-limited campaign, there's no way to set a date or time range in the advanced rules, which would be the obvious place to have it, I think. I can't imagine that feature will be missing for long though. The ability to set a custom cookie and then show or hide pop-ups based on that cookie, and the ability to conditionally show or hide pop-ups based on parameters in the URL. I'm going to come back to these later near the end. Remember, lead capture tools like ConvertBox and ConvertFlow have those nice personalization features to greet the user by name. And yet, definitely in Elementor, and even better, I would say. You can personalize the pop-up content based on the logged in user details and also from details like name and email in the URL parameters as well. So to dynamically display logged in user details, that's just dynamic data, just like you can anywhere else in Elementor. So on any field that has the dynamic link, this is in the heading widget here. So choose user info and choose which aspect to display. So I could set the user's first name and then in advanced set the word hi before it. And I could set a fallback of there as well. So it'll say hi there if the user actually isn't logged in. You can do the same with each of the form fields in an Elementor form too. So the fields are pre-filled with the user's details if they're already logged into your site. And also URL parameters. So if the visitor is on our email list and comes to our page from a link in an email we sent them, we can pull their name or email address from the page URL using request parameters. Now they're still in dynamic, and then request parameters. I'll go further into how to actually do that in future videos. So it's great Elementor has these advanced pop-up features, but can it handle all the use cases I outlined at the start? Pretty important. So let's see how we do that for each one. I'm going to whiz through this for speed for this video, but as I say, I'll have more in-depth tutorials on this really soon. So lead capture. Adding an Elementor opt-in form widget to a pop-up is really easy. And Elementor forms integrate with all the major email marketing providers or via Zapier if there's no direct integration. You can have the opt-in pop-up appear by clicking a button, or it can appear automatically, like when the visitor reaches the end of a blog post or when they first visit your site. Promoting related content. Yes, you could have a pop-up promoting an important blog post or a landing page, for example, and use display conditions on the pop-up to only show it when the viewer is, viewing a certain category, for example, to keep the recommendation really relevant. Advertising products. Yeah, you could pull in WooCommerce products into a pop-up and set the pop-up to display only when viewing certain WooCommerce categories or products. I can see some awesome ways to combine this with cart flows for some really nice WooCommerce sales funnels. There's a link to cart flows below this video. Coupon codes. Nice and easy. Show them as they enter the site or only show relevant coupon offers when viewing certain products. Capture the lead at the same time with an Elementor form they have to submit to get the coupon code. Login pop-ups. You just add in the Elementor login form widget and set conditions on the pop-up to only show when someone's not already logged in. Age consent gate, easy too. So you set it to display on page entrance in triggers, make it full screen, hide the close button, and set it to not display again for that user once they've made the choice. Segmenting content, yep, just a simple pop-up with links to the relevant parts of the site. Now, segmenting leads with multi-choice selections. This is a beauty and very exciting to be able to do this. Do you remember this is where you offer a set of questions or options in a pop-up and then you deliver different follow-up pop-ups depending on their choices. So you can pre-qualify and segment leads. So like in the diagram on the ConvertBox website here, in Elementor, this one would be your first pop-up. Each one of these options, these links, would have a trigger set on it, a dynamic link trigger to set a different extra pop-up. These are all here. Each of these can have different content inside them or forms or whatever. And then you can add them to your email system and tag them or send them to a different landing page or whatever you like. Basically, any type of multi-choice or quiz where you want to show a different follow-on pop-up based on the answers is great. Surveys and quizzes. So what about creating surveys or quizzes for lead capture that tools like Survey Slam provide? What if you want to actually collect and store the answers and show the visitors their answers, like with a personality quiz? Now, this is where there are some limitations. If it's an actual survey, like a feedback form, you could just add an Elementor form widget to the pop up. If you wanted those questions to appear over a series of multiple pop ups, I'd advise embedding a tool like Typeform in a single pop up instead, or use a separate form tool like Gravity Forms or Caldera, because Elementor forms can't be split over multiple pages. Or, of course, use Survey Slam itself. It's actually really good. Now, Elementor can handle a lot of Survey Slam's features, but not really if you want multi-part quizzes or forms where you need to gather and store or display the user's answers. Social proof. So those little social proof bubbles that services like FOMO or Proof provide. Yes, it can be done. Well, at least you can make that style of pop-up easily enough. But FOMO and Proof are integrated with a whole ton of different apps and services out there, and not just e-commerce either. So depending on your needs, this is where you might well need a separate dedicated tool like Proof or FOMO. Offers with urgency. Yep, it's really easy to embed a countdown timer in a pop-up, either with a fixed time and date or evergreen, so the deadline is relative to each individual visitor. This still doesn't quite match the features of a dedicated evergreen service like Deadline Funnel because of how tightly Deadline Funnel is integrated with your email marketing service. It's super easy to get around Elementor's evergreen timers, but it's not so easy with Deadline Funnel. But if that's not too important, you can save a chunk of cash on a Deadline Funnel subscription. And if there's a deadline, either fixed or evergreen, it would be great to be able to also set the pop-up to expire after that time too. So currently, if a time-limited campaign is over, you'd have to remember to disable or delete the pop-up manually. Cart abandonment. Yeah, just set an exit intent pop-up on the cart page that triggers when they're about to leave the cart. And you could use this in conjunction with your email marketing system too. So for example, I have Thrivecart send drip, a tag when someone abandons the cart, which can trigger sending an email to that visitor too. So you can help rescue abandoned carts both on the site with Elementor pop-ups and with your email as well. So what are the positives here? Yes, Elementor can now replace the functionality of a whole lot of other tools out there. Same pop-up types, same triggers, same targeting, and for the same use cases. Of course, some specialist tools will still be easier and quicker or more powerful and with more integrations because that's what they're designed for. I do realize it is asking a lot for Elementor to replace literally everything, but I think those exceptions are in the minority. It clearly can, certainly replace a lot of other tools as it stands. Some tools are only for lead capture, but Elementor pop-ups cover all kinds of use cases, way more than just lead capture. You're already paying for Elementor Pro, or you are if you're serious about using Elementor for marketing and business results. If you don't have Elementor Pro, now's the time to get it. I've got an affiliate link below this video where I get a small commission if you buy from that link, just by way of thanks. And what's great about Elementor Popups is that everything is built in the same way any other content in Elementor is built. There's nothing new to learn, no separate services to maintain. They're just managed within the Elementor template library, like all other templates. And Elementor Popups clearly have way easier and more powerful and flexible design controls compared to any other tool. So you're not just stuck with predefined pop-up types like with other tools, you can pretty much design whatever you like. And the big advantage over any other tool, deep integration. Pop-up content is fully integrated with WordPress and the rest of Elementor. The ability to pull in dynamic data like blog content, logged in user data, URL parameters for personalization, WooCommerce data, and this kind of deep integration maybe make Elementor pop-ups worth it, even if there might be a few compromises compared to using other kinds of tools. So are there any downsides? Sure, definitely. As I say, the process of creating pop-ups and flows compared to some more dedicated solutions like ConvertBox or SurveySlam is a bit more manual and clunky, but it's going to be, isn't it? Those tools are built for a very specific workflow in mind, and you might decide that's important. The excellent paid lead capture plugin Convert Pro from Brainstorm Force lets you set custom cookies and then show or hide pop-ups based on those cookies. You can't do that in Elementor pop-ups, at least not in this first release anyway. And Convert Pro also allow you to chain multiple rules into rule sets, which can be very powerful. Platforms like ConvertFlow tightly integrate with email marketing systems to conditionally show different pop-ups and offers based on your visitors' tags in your email system. So for example, it won't show an opt-in form to someone who's already opted into that particular lead magnet. It'll show them another offer instead. I'd like to be able to embed pop-up content within page content using the same conditions and rules, like login forms in sidebars or offers within the page itself that only display for visitors from a certain website. Entrance animations are great, but it'd be nice to have exit animations too. So if you look here with Sumo's welcome mat feature, click to close it and it animates out of the way. As I say, you can't yet set start dates or expiry dates for time limited campaigns. Other tools like Convert Pro have built-in integration with Google Analytics, which makes it really easy to send pop-up conversion events to analytics, update your funnel tracking, things like that. And sure, you can do this now with Elementor pop-ups, but it'd be a manual process of creating those events yourself in Tag Manager. Now you also get some simple pop-up analytics right there in the WordPress dashboard too. And finally, Convert Pro also has built-in split testing to split test pop-up conversion performance. You can run A/B tests, multivariate tests, test different types of pop-ups against each other, not just elements within a pop-up. Now, there are other split testing solutions out there like Split Test for Elementor that you can check out. I've not tested it with this new pop-ups feature yet. But this tool is absolutely brand new as I record this video, and it's entirely likely that a lot of those gripes will all be covered very soon. I've got to say, I absolutely love the new pop-ups feature. I hear the phrase game changer all the time, and it's a very overused phrase. But in this case, it really is apt. This truly is a game changer. It opens up a whole world of possibilities of what we can do with Elementor without needing extra tools with extra expense. I'm quite giddy with excitement actually. I'm going to be rolling out all kinds of things on my own sites with it. So again, I've made a PDF cheat sheet of everything I cover in this video, the use cases, pop-up types, pop-up triggers for easy reference. I can send it to you. Just go to designbuildweb.co/Elementor Popups. Let me know your email address and I'll send it over. If you like this video, help me out by giving it a like and dropping me a comment below. Let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to get notified when I have new videos. Thanks for sticking through this. It's been a long one. I'll see you soon.